Having created an index, I'd also like to add a table of content to this document. A table of content is very easy if you've used styles. I'm first of all going to press Control Home to go to the top of my document. I then want my table of content to reside on its own page, so I'm going to press the key combination Control Enter to insert a page break. I'll then press Control Home to go back to the top. I'd like to type the title, Table of Content, and press the Enter key a couple of times. And this is where I'd like my table of content to be. To insert a table of content based on your styles, simply go to the References tab in the ribbon and go to the Table of Contents group and choose Table of Contents. There are a gallery of styles to choose from, but I'd like to choose the option Insert Table of Contents, where I can really control my table of content. In here, for example, it's going to use the headings 1, 2 and 3 styles for my table of content. I can increase that to 9 if I've used up to heading 9, simply by showing the levels. Or if I've got a lot of headings, I may reduce the table of content to only include headings 1 and 2. But I'll go for headings 1, 2 and 3, so you can show the levels. I'd also like to choose the format Formal. And when I click OK, I'm given a table of content based on my heading 1, heading 2 and heading 3 styles. Notice also in my Styles task pane I've got TOC1, TOC2 and TOC3. These are the styles behind the table of content. The fact that the heading 1s appear like this in my table of content is because of the style TOC1, and the fact that my heading 2s appear this way is because of TOC2, and because Break the Rules appears this way is because of the underlying style TOC3. So if you're unhappy about the look of your table of content, you wouldn't manually change the table of content, otherwise the next time you update the table of content it'll just drop those manual changes. Instead you would change the styles sitting behind those entries in your table of content. If I want to modify the table of content, I'll simply click on it and go back to the Table of Contents button, and this time I might choose something from the gallery. So I'll choose this option here. And there's my table of contents. If I go Undo and I go back to the Table of Contents button and choose Insert Table of Content, I could also choose a different style in here. I could choose, for instance, Classic and click OK. It'll want to replace the selected table of content, so I'll click OK. And this is the classic style of table of content. But I might put it back to formal. So I'll go back to Table of Contents in my References tab in my ribbon, go back to Insert Table of Content and choose Formal. I find that formal is the best for a table of content and for an index. And OK. And OK to replace the selected table of content. Now the table of content and the index are what they call fields, and that is you didn't type that information, that field has been generated. To see the fields there's a key combination called Alt F9. If I press Alt F9 on my keyboard I can see the code behind the table of content, and this tells me I have a table of content in the order of headings 1 to 3 and it is using the headings. And if I was actually to press Control N to go to the end of my document, I can also see my index is a field. Because I didn't type my index, it's generated. If I press the key combination Alt F9 again, I go back to seeing the result, and Alt F9 again, I go back to seeing the field code, and Alt F9 again. The thing with fields, and I'll just press Control Home back to the top of my document, the thing with fields is sometimes they appear shaded. If I click on my table of content, I can see it's shaded grey, and if I click away, it's not shaded grey. The grey doesn't print, it just indicates that this is a field. What I like to do is set it that I can always see fields and that I don't have to click on them to see the shading. For this you would go to File, and you would go to Options, and you would go to Advanced. And what you have down here is an option Field Shading. Mine is currently set to show the shading when the object's selected, but I might change this to Always. I always want to see field shading, whether it's selected or not. And OK. And now I can tell that this is a field purely because it's grey without selecting it. If I press Control End to go to the end of my document, I can see my index is grey, and this indicates it's a field also without having to select it. And I'll go Control Home again. Now the thing with fields is they don't automatically update. For instance, I might change the heading to Decorating in 4 stages. I might even shift it to another page. Let's try that. So I'm going down to Decorating in 3 stages, and I'll change 3 to 4. I might also scroll down and push Begin with Colour onto the next page. So I'll press Control Enter. If I now go Control Home, I'll see I still have Decorating in 3 stages, and Begin with Colour still resides on page 2, so I need to update my table of content. I could click on my table of content, and from the References tab in the ribbon, I could choose the Update Table button, or press F9, in the same way as we updated the index earlier. But when you've got many fields such as a table of content and an index, and possibly other fields which we're going to look at, it's probably easier to select the entire document and update all fields in one hit, rather than having to update in each individual component. So for that I'll press Control A, which selects all, and then I'll press the function key F9, which updates. This is asking me, do I want to update the table of content page numbers only, or the entire table? Now because I made changes to the wording, I'd update the entire table and not just the page numbers, so I'll click OK. Immediately I have Decorating in 4 stages, and Begin with Colour is now on page 3. If I go back and change the 4 to 3 and take out the page break, I can then go Control Home. If I then go Control A and press the key F9 and update my entire table and OK, I now have gone back to Decorating in 3 stages, and Begin with Colour is returned to page 2. So when I'm writing material, I often press Control A and F9 just to make sure all the fields are updated.